They say the most devastating truths usually arrive in polite whispers, cold and sterile, not with a scream, not with a scene, but with a few calm words that unravel your entire world. I learned that lesson on a Tuesday at 3:17 in the afternoon, in the silent base corridor of the Janssen Clinic in Palo Alto. My silk blouse clung to my back from a cold sweat, and the taste of the organic kale and celery juice I had forced myself to drink at lunch suddenly turned rancid in my throat. I had gone back for my forgotten Fendi bag, and I froze in front of the half-open door of consultation room number 3. That was where my husband, Liam Sterling, the love of my life, the father of the twins growing inside me, was talking to our genetic counselor. His voice was low, measured, the exact same tone he used to negotiate a hostile takeover. The details, Dr. Evans, in plain English. Dr. Evans, a woman whose demeanor normally broadcasted an expensive, comforting calm, sounded unusually tense. The twins carry a paired genetic marker. It is extremely rare. It is benign for them, but during the shared circulatory phase of the pregnancy, it can act as a trigger. It could provoke a cascading autoimmune response in Serafina. Think of it as her body mounting a catastrophic defense against a phantom threat. The risks are severe: organ failure, stroke, and a maternal mortality rate that spikes sharply in the 3rd trimester. The floor beneath my Gucci loafers seemed to tilt. Maternal mortality. The words buzzed in my ears like wasps. I grabbed my still flat stomach. A protective gesture so primitive it felt older than time. And the solution, Liam asked. Not, how is she? Not, what does this mean for my wife? The solution. There is a targeted, patented gene therapy. It is administered to Serafina in a series of infusions. It basically hides the marker from her immune system. The success rate is over 95% for the mother. For the twins, 0 risk. There was a beat of silence. Then, Liam, my handsome, ambitious husband, heir to the sterling tech fortune, spoke the words that would slice my life forever into a before and an after. The cost: $2 million. It is highly personalized, and the research is— Liam cut her off. Do not let my wife find out about this. The air rushed out of my lungs in a mute blast. I swear my heart stopped. The world narrowed to the wood grain of the door, to the sliver of fluorescent light on the carpet. Dr. Evans stammered, Mr. Sterling, I have a legal and ethical obligation to my patient. Her life is in considerable danger. This is not an elective procedure. It is a critical medical intervention. Your obligation is to your client, which is me. Liam's voice was pure ice. I am the one paying your fees. I am the one whose family name is on the wing of this hospital. Serafina is highly anxious. The stress of knowing this could be just as damaging as the condition itself. We will monitor her closely. We will give her the best supportive care. Supportive care is palliative in this scenario. It is not a treatment. Your medical opinion is noted, but the decision is made. The therapy is cost prohibitive for an outcome that, let us be honest, is not guaranteed. My wife is strong. We will bank on that. His tone shifted. It grew softer, like a blade sliding back into its sheath. Now the paperwork. I want her file to reflect a standard low-risk twin pregnancy. Any notes about this marker or its theoretical treatment must be scrubbed. A separate encrypted file accessible only to you and me. Understood. I heard the shuffle of papers, the soft click of a pen. My hands were shaking violently. I shoved them deep into the pockets of my tailored trousers, forcing my fingers to stay straight. Do not make a sound. Do not move. Dr. Evans's voice was heavy with defeat, and something else that made me sick. I cannot, in good conscience. Your conscience is funded by the Sterling Family Trust, Doctor. Your new genetic sequencing lab, the one you have been dreaming about. Consider this a prerequisite for your funding. Liam's voice dropped to a confidential murmur, but I caught every poisoned word. Sometimes, for the greater good of a family's legacy, hard choices must be made. A tragedy if it were to happen. Young, a tragic loss that can rally people together, generate immense public sympathy. It clears the path for a necessary restructuring. My wife holds a significant amount of founder shares in Aurora Tech. In the event of her passing, they revert to me under our shareholder agreement. The narrative of a grieving widower left to raise twins alone is powerful. It guarantees stability for the company, for the family's future. He was talking about my death as a narrative, as a corporate strategy. And the other matter, Dr. Evans asked, sounding ill. Sophia is at 16 weeks. Early tests confirm it is a boy. The trust clause to unlock the full inheritance requires a male heir. So you see, Doctor, everything is aligning. A tragic loss, a bittersweet new beginning. The legacy continues. All that is required is your discretion. I did not wait to hear more. I stepped back. One silent, precise step after another. My product manager brain, trained for crisis, was already overriding the shattered, screaming core of myself. Do not cry. Do not throw up. Do not confront him. I retrieved my bag at the nurse's station with a smile that felt carved from wood. I muttered something about getting turned around in the hallway and walked out into the blinding California sun. Inside the silent, leather-scented interior of my Tesla, I finally let myself shake. Massive, tearing tremors that had nothing to do with the chill of the air conditioning. Liam. My Liam. He planned to let me die for my shares, for a male heir currently growing in the womb of his data analyst mistress, for a more compelling public image. The life I had built, that beautiful, glossy, silicone-coated life, was a precision-engineered lie. And I, Serafina Vance, had just been handed the blueprint for its destruction. I sat there until the shaking stopped, replaced by a cold, clarifying fury. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, the face of a woman about to go to war. All right, I whispered to myself and to the tiny lives inside me. Let the games begin. But that firestorm in the clinic parking lot came later. Let me rewind. Let me show you how the beautiful trap was sprung 6 weeks earlier. Excuse me, say that again? I stared at the plastic stick on the edge of my marble bathroom sink, the one with the 2 brutally pink lines. I was the VP of product at Aurora Tech, a rising star in the Silicon Valley firmament. I managed multi-million-dollar launches and teams of brilliant, sleepless engineers. And yet, in that moment, my entire vocabulary shrank to single syllables. Liam, wrapped in a towel, his hair still damp from the shower, leaned over my shoulder. For a second, his famous sterling composure cracked. His jaw went slack. Then, a wide, genuine smile split his face. He let out a shout of joy, a sound so undignified it made me laugh. He spun me around, careful even in his excitement. 2 lines. That means, so we are. I think we need a second opinion from a doctor, I said. My voice was shaking with disbelief. But yes, I think we are. The next few weeks were a happy, nauseating blur. The official confirmation, the first grainy ultrasound, and then the bombshell that felt like a miracle multiplied by 2. Well, hello there, the ultrasound tech said, her voice bright as she moved the transducer over the cold gel on my belly. And who do we have here? There is a strong, perfect little heartbeat. And let us look a little further. Oh, wow. Liam, holding my hand, squeezed it tight. What is it? The tech's smile widened. There is another one in there. You are having twins. The world did a slow, happy somersault. Twins. An instant family. Liam's eyes were shining with something that looked like awe. He kissed my forehead, then my lips, right there in the exam room. 2, he breathed. My overachiever. That night, we drove to the Sterling estate in Atherton. What I thought would be a quiet family dinner turned into an impromptu celebration that felt more like a corporate launch party. Twins, declared Victoria Sterling, Liam's mother giving a single clap, a sharp, percussive sound. She was a woman carved from good bone structure and better investments. Robert, did you hear? Twins! My father-in-law, Robert Sterling, looked up from his tablet, a slow smile spreading across his aristocratic face. Excellent. Doubles the odds of a boy. He said it like he was talking about portfolio diversification, Dad Liam chided, but he was smiling as he poured glasses of the 89 Dom Perignon that had appeared like magic. It is simple math, son Robert said, standing to clap Liam on the shoulder. The trust favors a clear, direct line. A male heir or heirs simplifies everything, guarantees stability. He raised his glass. To the future. To the Sterling men. I felt a tiny cold thread of discomfort. My babies were not even the size of plums, and they were already being discussed in terms of probabilities and succession. I pushed it down. That was just how they were. They showed love through strategy. I took a sip of champagne, though the bubbles did nothing to settle my stomach. We will need to review Serafina's security detail, Victoria mused, already tapping on her phone. And the diet. I will send Natalie, my nutritionist, over, and we will schedule regular checkups with Dr. Evans at Janssen. The best. Only the best for our grandchildren. Mother, I think Sarah's OB at Stanford is perfectly capable, Liam said. But his protest was weak. Nonsense. Janssen runs the most advanced preventative panels. We need to be proactive, ensure everything is optimal. Victoria's gaze fell on me, sharp and evaluating. You are carrying the future, my dear. It is a heavy responsibility. We must manage it correctly. The word manage stuck in my throat. I was a person, not a project. I forced a smile. I am sure my doctor and I can. It is settled, Robert interrupted, not unkindly, but with a firmness that allowed no debate. We will cover all expenses, of course. Think of it as an investment. He chuckled at his own joke. Later, as Liam drove us back to our modern glass and redwood home in Palo Alto, I finally voiced my unease. Your parents are a bit much. I am not a broodmare for the Sterling dynasty, Liam. He reached over, took my hand, and brought it to his lips. I know. They are archaic. But they are excited. I am excited. This is about us, our family. The rest is just noise. He glanced at me, his handsome profile lit by the dashboard glow. Just smile and let them do their thing. It makes them happy, and it takes the pressure off us. They will handle all the tedious details. You just focus on growing our babies. It sounded reasonable, protective even. So why did it feel like I was being gently but firmly placed inside a beautifully decorated box? The tedious details began immediately. Natalie, the nutritionist, arrived with a week's worth of bland, prepackaged meals. A sleek black SUV with a stoic driver appeared for my security, effectively tracking my every move. Appointments were booked at Janssen with the renowned Dr. Evans. The first visit with Dr. Evans was a week after the Atherton dinner. The clinic was all soft lighting, abstract art, and a silence so deep it felt expensive. Dr. Evans was in her late 50s with a soothing voice and eyes that missed nothing. Serafina Liam, welcome, she said, shaking our hands. Thrilled to be working with you. Victoria and Robert speak so highly of you both. The consultation was exhaustive. Family histories, genetic questionnaires, blood draws that felt more extensive than anything I had ever experienced. Liam was attentive, asking smart questions about zygosity and placental development. He was in full heir apparent mode, charming, and engaged. Dr. Evans was equally professional, though I caught her looking at me sometimes when Liam was talking, a faint, unreadable expression in her eyes. I chalked it up to clinical scrutiny. We will run the full spectrum of panels, Dr. Evans concluded. Some are very new, looking for markers most clinics do not even screen for. The Sterling family believes in being at the absolute forefront of everything, health included. Peace of mind is priceless, Liam said smoothly, a hand resting on the small of my back. As we walked out, Liam's phone vibrated. He glanced at it, a slight crease appearing between his brows before vanishing. Damn it, work emergency. Sophia in analytics is panicking over a data discrepancy for the board report. I need to head to the office. On a Saturday, I asked. You know startup life, he said, kissing my cheek. The grind never stops. The driver will take you home, order something, rest. I will be late, so do not wait up for me. His smile was warm, but his eyes were already miles away, tethered to the problem on his screen. That night alone in our massive, quiet living room, picking at a Natalie-approved bowl of quinoa, the isolation felt heavier than usual. I pulled out my laptop, driven by instinct, back to work, back to something I could control. I logged into the Aurora Tech server to review the progress on my latest product iteration. My access logs, a habit from my minor in cybersecurity, showed a recent login from Liam's profile into a financial modeling file he should not have needed. The file was titled Long-Term Capital Liquidity Scenarios Post-Trigger Event. Trigger event. A cold corporate term. What trigger event? A funding round, an IPO. I tried to open it. Password protected. A tiny red flag started waving in the back of my mind. Faint, but persistent. I thought about the way his mother had said, manage. The way his father had said, investment. The way Liam had so easily accepted his family's hostile takeover of my pregnancy. The way he had looked at his phone. He is under pressure, I told myself. The family, the trust, the company, it is a lot. But the seed of doubt, tiny and hard, was already planted. The next few weeks were a study in contrasts. In public, we were the golden couple. We attended a charity gala at the De Young Museum, where Liam proudly announced the twin pregnancy to a circle of envious friends and colleagues. His hand remained almost constantly on my stomach, a possessive, proud gesture. I smiled until my cheeks ached. In private, the box was getting smaller. Victoria showed up with a stack of binders from a high-end baby planner. We are looking at the old Solari estate in Los Altos Hills, for the nursery wing. It gets the right light, and the security perimeter is already exceptional. We are not moving, Victoria, I said, trying to keep my voice light. We love this house. The twins can have the rooms down the hall. She gave me a pitying smile. Serafina, darling, sentimentality is charming, but practicality is essential. That hallway is too long, and if there is an emergency... The Solari estate has a detached nanny suite and a fully equipped medical room. We are renovating it. It is non-negotiable. I brought it up with Liam that night. He was in his office, frowning at a spreadsheet. Right, the house. Yeah, Mom mentioned it. It is a solid asset. The appreciation on that property is insane, and it is more secure. Let us just go along with it for now, okay? Pick our battles. He did not look up from his screen. My pregnancy and our children should not be a battle, I said, my voice tighter than I intended. That got his attention. He swiveled his chair around. His expression was a mask of patient concern. Sa, come on. Do not get emotional. They are trying to help. This is what they do. They solve problems with resources. We are lucky. Let them solve this. He walked over, knelt in front of me, and put his hands on my knees. When the babies are born and the trust stuff is settled, we will have all the freedom in the world. We can travel, build that house in Tahoe you always talk about. Let us just get through this phase together. He sounded so logical, so exhausted. I felt guilty for my unease. He was juggling a lot. I nodded, burying my doubts. Then came the call from Dr. Evans's office. We would like you and Mr. Sterling to come in to discuss the full results of your genetic panels. Routine follow-up. The appointment was set. The day arrived. Liam was unusually quiet during the drive, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Are you okay? I asked. A lot on my mind, he said. Board meeting this afternoon. Hostile issues. In the consultation room, Dr. Evans maintained a calm professionalism. She went over the basics. Everything looked perfect. The babies were measuring exactly on track. Strong heartbeats. Liam relaxed beside me, his arm draped around my shoulders. We will just do a quick ultrasound today to confirm positioning, Dr. Evans said. Then, Serafina, if you could wait outside for a few minutes, I would like to speak with Liam about some administrative matters regarding the expanded panels, billing codes, that sort of thing. Boring insurance stuff. I smiled and agreed. Why wouldn't I? I went to the restroom and then remembered I had left my bag in the consultation room. I walked back down the quiet corridor, my steps muted on the plush carpet. I reached for the doorknob, and I heard Liam's voice, low and intense. The details, Dr. Evans, in plain English. I froze. The rest filtered through the door. Every word a shard of ice, piercing the naive, happy future I had believed in. The marker, the risk, the $2 million therapy. His refusal. His cold, calculated plan for my death. My legacy. His male heir with Sophia. I stood there like a ghost in the hallway as my husband negotiated my life for a cleaner balance sheet and a better narrative. When he finally said, "Do not let my wife find out about this," it was not a request. It was an order. A death sentence delivered in a whisper. I did not scream. I did not burst in. The woman. I had been the woman who believed in the fairy tale, died in that hallway. Someone else took her place. Someone with everything to lose and nothing to trust. Someone with the experience of launching products in Silicon Valley with a fight stockpiled inside her and a heart that had just turned into pure, cold data. I stepped back, retrieved my bag, walked out, sat in my car, and shook while the truth rearranged my universe. The man I loved was a monster. My life was a ledger entry. And my pregnancy, the thing that was supposed to be a happy beginning, was now a race against a hidden clock. I looked at my reflection. The shock was receding, consumed by a new, steady flame. They thought I was a problem to be managed, a variable in their equation. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I was Serafina. I built products that scaled to millions of users. I debugged complex systems under impossible deadlines. I navigated the most ruthless boardrooms in California. And I had just identified the most critical bug of my life. The vulnerability was not in any codebase. It was in my marriage. An exploit. My own trusting heart. Fine. Time to patch that vulnerability. Time to write a new program. One with a very different output. I started the car. The engine purred a sleek, silent sound of power. I had twins to protect, a life to reclaim, and a husband to destroy. Let the games begin. The drive back from the Janssen Clinic was an exercise in autopilot. My hands, steady now, gripped the wheel at 10 and 2. My eyes tracked the familiar curves of Sand Hill Road, passing the venture capital fortresses that housed the gods who decided which dreams lived and which died. Today, I felt like one of their failed investments. A promising startup whose founder had just been ousted in a hostile takeover. The product, my life was still running, but the code base had been hijacked. I could taste the bile of betrayal in the back of my throat. A sharp chemical burn. $2 million. My life and the lives of our children had a price tag. A tag Liam had deemed too high. A tag worth less than my Aurora Tech shares, less than a smooth Sterling trust transition, less than the convenience of a sad backstory and a male heir named Sterling. I pulled into the driveway of our Palo Alto home, a masterpiece of glass and reclaimed wood that Architectural Digest had lovingly featured. It looked like a movie set. Now I understood that it was. I sat in the car, watching the late afternoon sun cast long, warped shadows from the redwoods. I needed a story, a performance. The product manager inside me took the wheel, shoving the shattered, weeping wife into a dark closet. Define the objective. Identify key players. Mitigate immediate risk. Objective. Protect the twins. Destroy Liam Sterling. Key player. Liam. Adversary. Primary threat. Victoria and Robert. Secondary threats/influencers. Dr. Evans. Compromised. Potential weak point. Myself. Asset to be liquidated. The twins. Assets to be acquired. Immediate risk. Liam finding out I know. Any shift in my baseline behavior that raises suspicion. I took a deep, shuddering breath that felt like inhaling crushed glass. Then I practiced. I looked in the rearview mirror. I let the terror, the rage, and the dizzying grief flood my face. Then I forced it smooth. I summoned the memory of the pure, giddy joy of the first ultrasound. I focused on that feeling and let it warm my eyes. I pictured Liam's face when he spun me around in the bathroom. The love in that moment had been real. I was sure of it. No. It did not matter if it was real or not. It had become a weapon now. I could weaponize it too. I painted on a soft, tired, happy smile. The smile of a pregnant woman after a long day. I fluffed my hair and reapplied a sheer gloss to my lips. I was prepping for the most important demo of my life. I walked inside. Liam was already there, standing in the great room, looking out over the infinity pool. He turned, and his face was a mask of concern. He was already playing his part. Fine. So was I. "Hey," he said, crossing the room with quick strides. He took my face in his hands, stroking my cheeks with his thumbs. His touch, which used to electrify me, now made my skin crawl. I leaned into it, forcing myself to blink softly. "How are you feeling? You were so quiet on the phone after I texted you from the car." "All good. Just exhausted. The twins are perfect. Dr. Evans says I am a champion. Going to sleep soon. Kisses." "I am just overwhelmed in the best way," I said, my voice catching slightly. I rested my hands over his. Seeing them again, it feels so real now. And Dr. Evans is so meticulous. So many questions. I rolled my eyes, a tired, affectionate gesture. "I am glad you handled the billing stuff. Insurance gives me a headache." I watched his eyes, those beautiful, treacherous blue eyes. I looked for any flash, even a micro-expression. Nothing. Just warm, relieved concern. "That is my job," he said, kissing my forehead. "You have one job. Grow our babies. Let me handle the rest." That once sweet sentence now sounded like a death warrant. "I just need to lie down for a bit. The nausea is coming back." "Of course. I will have Maria bring up some ginger tea." I retreated to our bedroom, the sanctuary that was now a crime scene. The moment the door clicked shut, the smile vanished. I paced the floor, silently, digging into the thick carpet. Think. I could not go to the police. What did I have? An overheard conversation. A respected doctor would deny it, with her career and her fancy lab on the line. My word against Liam's, backed by the infinite resources of his family. They would paint me as a hormonal, paranoid pregnant woman, maybe suffering from prenatal anxiety. They would commit me for my own safety before I could even say the words negligent homicide. I needed proof. Hard, digital, irrefutable proof. I needed to understand the entire architecture of his plan. My laptop. I opened it, my fingers flying over the keys. First, I set up a hidden encrypted partition on my hard drive. I named it Project Nursery. Then, I opened a new document. I typed out everything I remembered from the conversation as verbatim as possible. Do not let my wife find out about this. Cost prohibitive for an outcome that is not guaranteed. The narrative of a grieving widower. Sophia is at 16 weeks. A boy. I logged the time, the date. Next, I opened a clean browser in incognito mode. I found the publicly available summary of the Sterling family trust clauses. It was vague, but phrases like direct lineal descendants and succession incentives were everywhere. I needed the full document. I searched for Sophia in Sterling Capital. There she was, Sophia Reed, lead data analyst. Her employee badge photo showed a pretty sharp-featured woman in her late 20s, with smart eyes and a confident smile. I felt a pang that was both rage and absurdly pity. Did she know she was part of a plan that involved my murder? Or did she just think she had hit the jackpot? A rich, handsome husband disenchanted with his barren, overly anxious wife. I needed access. I needed to get inside Liam's world. An hour later, I went downstairs. My nausea had settled. Liam was in his office on a video call. His voice, warm and authoritative, drifted through the door. The liquidity event needs to precede the trigger. Otherwise, the tax implications will be catastrophic. Rework the models and get back to me. I walked to the kitchen making noise. He came out a few minutes later smiling. Feeling better. Much. Just hungry. I was thinking of ordering from that new Thai place. Perfect. I will join you. I am done for the night. He walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his hands splaying over my stomach. My girls, he murmured into my hair. I went rigid for a fraction of a second before forcing myself to relax against him. My girls. He had always said he wanted daughters. That was a lie, too. Or just a convenient preference before the demands of the trust and Sophia's son became the priority. Over dinner, served in exquisite ceramic bowls, he was attentive. So Dr. Evans had no concerns. Everything is perfect. I took a bite of pad thai and chewed slowly. Textbook, I said. I am the picture of health. Strong heartbeats, strong everything. I looked him dead in the eye as if to say, with good care, there is absolutely no reason I won't have a perfectly normal, healthy delivery. I was testing him, feeding his own lie back to him, wrapped in a blanket of blissful ignorance. Liam's smile did not waver. A masterclass. That is my girl. I told you you were strong. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We are so lucky. The hypocrisy was so thick I could choke on it. We are, I agreed, my voice soft, incredibly lucky. Later, while he slept soundly beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The panic had solidified into a cold, hard plan. I needed data. And I needed an ally. The first piece came unexpectedly 2 days later. Liam was stressed about an upcoming board meeting at Sterling Capital. He had been drinking more whiskey than usual. He had left his personal phone, a sleek flagship device, charging on the kitchen island, while he took an angry call on speakerphone from his work line in the office. I caught snippets. Unacceptable margins. Fire the whole team if you have to. I stared at the personal phone. It was locked with Face ID and a complex alphanumeric passcode, but I did not know it. I had never snooped before. I had believed in trust. My naivety was a luxury I could no longer afford. But right next to it, like a gift from a malicious god, was his old phone. An earlier model. He used it as a glorified iPod for the house sound system, loaded with old playlists. It was sitting on a speaker dock charging. It had a simple swipe to unlock feature. He had never bothered to update it. My heart hammered against my ribs. I glanced toward the office. His voice was still raised. I picked up the old phone. My thumb left a sweaty smudge on the glass. I swiped. It unlocked. The home screen was a photo of us hiking in Big Sur, both of us laughing. The stab of pain was physical. I pushed it away. I went to settings. Find My iPhone was on. Good. I opened the App Store. It was still logged into his primary Apple ID. I had maybe 3 minutes. I did not have time to browse. I needed a Trojan horse, something that would give me continuous access. My mind raced. I was a product manager, not a hacker, but I understood systems. I quickly searched for and downloaded a legitimate, popular system cleaner app, one that requested deep storage access and required a device admin profile to run. I installed it, granting it every permission it asked for. My fingers trembled, but they were precise. While it configured, I navigated to his iCloud settings. Cellular backup was on. That old phone was probably still pulling down photos, contacts, and notes from his cloud, even if he did not actively use it. The cleaner app finished setting up. Among its many legitimate-sounding features was one called Network Log Monitor for Optimization. It was essentially a packet sniffer that could, in theory, log the device's network traffic. I toggled it on. From the office, Liam's voice got louder. He was wrapping up. I opened the Messages app. The threads were old from when this was his primary phone. But there, buried among golf banter with friends and family chats, was a thread with Sophia. The preview of the last message from over a year ago was innocent. Thanks for the notes. Liam will review the deck. But the thread was long. I could not read it now. I opened his mail. Same thing. Old email syncing. I went to his notes. Bingo. A note titled Trust Scenarios. I tapped it. Password protected. Damn it. Sa, have you seen my other phone? Liam's voice called out from the hallway. I almost dropped the old device. With 2 rapid swipes, I closed the Notes app, force-closed the Cleaner app, and dropped the phone back onto the dock screen down, just as he walked into the kitchen. Your other phone? I asked, turning from the sink where I was now rinsing a glass, my back to him. It is not on the island. I meant the new one. Oh, here it is. Thought I lost it. The board is being a pack of dinosaurs. He walked up behind me and nuzzled my neck. His breath smelled of whiskey and exhaustion. I am going to shower. Do not wait up. All right, I said quietly. That night, in the dead hours, lying next to his sleeping body, I used my own laptop. I navigated to the iCloud login associated with the old phone's Apple ID. I had seen the username, the password. I tried a few variations of his usuals. His mother's maiden name plus his birth year. Rejected. The name of his first boat plus an exclamation point. Rejected. I thought about the password-protected note. Trust scenarios. What would he use? Something he would not forget. Something meaningful to the trust. I typed Sterling Air 2025. The iCloud dashboard unlocked for a second. I just stared at the screen. I was in. I did not dive in immediately. That was the fastest way to get caught if he had login alerts pushed to his new phone. I spent 20 minutes looking at the structure. Photos, contacts, notes, mail, backups. I created a new secret email address using an encrypted service. I set up mail forwarding from his iCloud account to that new address for any emails containing the words Evans, Jansen, therapy, Sophia, prenatal, trust, air, and a few other key terms. It was a blunt instrument, but it was a start. Next, I went to the Find My app. I pinged the location of his current phone. Then, I opened the dashboard of the Cleaner app from the old phone, which I had synced to a burner account. The network log was a mess of code, but I could see connected devices. His new phone, Liam's iPhone 15, showed up as a recently connected device via Bluetooth. The app had a notification mirroring test feature. I toggled it on for the old phone, pushing a copy of all its notifications to a web portal. If his new phone mirrored notifications to the old one, maybe I would catch something. It was a makeshift amateur investigation, but it was a baseline. The next morning, the first piece of forwarded mail hit my secret inbox. It was a receipt from a prenatal vitamin boutique addressed to Sophia Reed, shipped to an address in San Jose. The order placed 2 weeks prior included a blue gender reveal confetti cannon. The confirmation was a physical blow. I sat at the kitchen table, the bright California sun looking obscenely cheerful, and read the line over and over. Blue. So it was all real. A few days later, the Sterling Capital Board meeting came and went. Liam was wound tight afterward. He decided to go for a drive to clear his head. I watched the Find My app on my laptop. His phone tracked south toward San Jose. It stopped at an apartment complex. It stayed there for 2 hours and 17 minutes. When he came back, he smelled like a different body wash, something with sandalwood. His was bergamot and oak moss. Just needed to think he said kissing my cheek. Drove all the way down to Half Moon Bay. The ocean always helps. I am glad it helped, I said, pouring him a glass of water. My hand did not even shake. The web portal for the Cleaner app delivered its first treasure. A week later, a mirrored notification from his new phone popped up. It was a calendar alert. Dinner with SR, 7 p.m., Village Pub. Sophia and Robert. The blood froze in my veins. An hour later, another notification. A text message preview. I could only see the first few words on the portal. Dad says keep it under wraps until after the rest was cut off. It was enough. They were all in on it. Liam, his parents, probably Sophia. Without a doubt, a conspiracy with my twins and me as the sacrificial lambs. I needed more than digital scraps. I needed someone who knew how to navigate this world, someone who could help me understand it, and someone who could fight back. I thought of the one person I knew who lived to expose the rot behind the glossy facade of Silicon Valley. I had not spoken to Chloe Rossi in over a year. We had met at a Women in Tech summit. We bonded over a mutual disdain for arrogant bro-coder culture and kept vaguely in touch via social media. She was an investigative journalist for a respected tech publication known for deep dives into corporate malfeasance and gender discrimination scandals. Her last big piece had been on a startup CEO who used company funds to quietly settle multiple harassment claims. It was a risk, but staying isolated was a bigger one. I used a burner phone I had bought with cash at a strip mall 30 miles away. I texted a number I hoped was still hers from a draft I had written and rewritten a dozen times. Chloe, it is Serafina Vance. We met at the Google Women's Summit. I have a story, the kind that ends careers and changes laws. It involves the Sterling family. I need to talk somewhere nobody knows us, discreetly. The reply came an hour later. Serafina, I remember the product wizard. I am listening. Golden Gate Park, Shakespeare Garden, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Bench by the sundial. Come alone. I will be reading a copy of Wired with a green cover. The next morning, I told Liam I had a prenatal massage and a long lunch with an old colleague in town. He barely looked up from his tablet. Have fun, babe. You deserve it. The Shakespeare Garden was quiet, a hidden oasis of manicured hedges and flowers mentioned in the bard's plays. I spotted her immediately. Chloe looked just as I remembered, sharp eyes, messy dark bun, and an air of coiled intensity. The green wired magazine sat on the bench beside her. I sat down without looking at her. Thanks for coming. She did not look at me either. Her eyes were fixed on a patch of rosemary. You said this was about the Sterlings. Start talking. So I talked. I kept my voice low, monotone. I told her about the twins, the family's perfect reaction, the appointment at Janssen. And then I told her what I heard. I recited the phrases verbatim from the document I had memorized. Do not let my wife find out. Cost prohibitive. The narrative of a grieving widower. Sophia is at 16 weeks. A boy. When I finished, there was a long silence. A bee buzzed lazily around a lavender bush. Jesus Christ, Serafina, she finally whispered, turning to look at me. Her eyes were wide, not with disbelief, but with horrified professional recognition. Do you have any proof? Anything. I handed her the burner phone. On it was a screenshot of the forwarded email for the blue gender reveal canon sent to Sophia Reed, and a grainy screenshot from the Find My app showing Liam's phone location at the San Jose apartment complex for over 2 hours overlaid on a map. This is his mistress. She is the data analyst at his family's firm. She is pregnant with a boy. He was with her the night he told me he was driving to the ocean to think. My voice sounded chillingly calm. I have more. I am getting more. He plans to let me die, Chloe, for my company shares and to fulfill a trust clause that demands a male heir. Chloe took the phone, swiped, zoomed in. Her face went paler, then hardened into a grim line. This goes way beyond a prenup scam. This is conspiracy to commit murder, or at least depraved indifference that could lead to manslaughter. She handed the phone back like it was toxic. Have you gone to the police? With what hearsay and a receipt for party supplies his family owns judges Chloe. The doctor will deny everything. They will label me unstable and have me locked up or declared an unfit mother before I can blink. I need hard, irrefutable proof, and I need a way out that does not end with me in a psych ward or a morgue. She stared at me, and I saw the calculations flashing behind her eyes. The journalist, recognizing the story of a lifetime. The woman, recognizing a person in mortal danger. What do you want from me? I don't know yet. Advice. Context. You have seen the guts of this world. Have you ever heard of anything like this before? She leaned back, looking up at the sky. Not this brazen. Not with a literal death sentence. But I have written pieces on coercive control in ultra-high net worth divorces, on trusts that incentivize specific reproductive outcomes, on sudden widowhoods that proved very financially convenient for certain tech founders. She looked at me. You are not the first woman to become an obstacle in a wealth transfer plan. You would just be the most permanently removed. The clinical way she said it solidified the nightmare. I was not crazy. I was a demographic. A liability to be managed. I need to get into his primary devices, his emails, his texts with the doctor, with his parents. I need the trust documents. I need everything. You cannot do that alone. This is not hacking an old iPod. This is serious. If he catches you, I know. And if I hesitate, I know some people. Women like us who have been through their own versions of hell with tech royalty. One is a security consultant, an ethical hacker. The other is a lawyer. left a massive firm after watching the system chew up victims. They are discreet, and they hate the Sterlings and their kind. A dangerous lifeline, a necessary one. Can you vouch for them with my life? And they would vouch for me with theirs. We have a sort of support group. A grim, faint smile touched her lips. We call ourselves the Furies, the ancient goddesses of vengeance. It was perfect. I want to meet them. This is not a book club, Serafina. If you bring them in, there is no going back. This gets real. This becomes a war. I met her gaze head-on, letting her see the cold fire that had replaced the terror. It is already a war. I just didn't know I was on the battlefield until now. I am done being a casualty. I am drafting my own army. Chloe held my gaze for a long moment, then gave a sharp, decisive nod. All right, give me a few days. I will set it up at a secure location. In the meantime, document everything. Every conversation, every weird look, every helpful suggestion from Victoria. Record what you can with your phone, but be careful. Assume your house, your car, and your devices are bugged. Use this. She pulled a cheap-looking flip phone from her bag. Prepaid. Anonymous. My number is saved under Flora. We use this for emergencies only. For now, play the perfect naive pregnant wife. Lean into it. You are tired, you are hormonal, you are focused on nurseries and baby names. You are absolutely zero threat. I took the phone. It felt solid, real, a tool. Thank you, Chloe. Do not thank me yet, she said, standing up. Thank me when we have buried these bastards. I will be in touch via Flora. And Serafina, for God's sake, be careful. I watched her walk away, disappearing down a path lined with camellias. I stayed on the bench for a long time, the sun warming my face. The fear was still there, a constant, icy hum in my veins. But beneath it, for the first time since that hallway at Jansen, I felt something else. Power. I had a direction. I had a potential ally. I had a secret. I placed a hand on my belly, where my daughters were growing. Mom has a plan, I whispered. When I got home, Liam was on the phone in his office. I caught the tail end of his conversation as I walked past my steps, silent on the hall runner. Liquidity is the key, Dad. Once the Aurora shares consolidate under the estate after the tragic event, we can merge the verticals without that opposition on the board. It cleans everything up. I walked into the kitchen, my face arranged into a serene mask. I opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle of water. My hand was steady. I had my performance. I had my mission. And soon, I would have my team. I opened the hidden partition on my laptop. Project Nursery. I created a new document. I titled it simply, The Furies. Then I started typing, detailing everything from my meeting with Chloe, the guard in her words, the offer of help. The evidence was mounting. Not enough for a court of law, but enough for the court of my own conviction. I saved the document, encrypting it with a new 24-character password I would never forget. A password built from the ashes of my old life. Sterling male heir will fail 2025. I closed the laptop. I could hear Liam wrapping up his call, his footsteps approaching the kitchen. I picked up a glossy catalog for organic crib mattresses Victoria had sent over. I pasted a look of mild, overwhelmed, pregnant fascination onto my face, just as he walked in. "Hey you," he said, smiling. "How was the massage?" "Divine," I said, smiling back. The very picture of contented exhaustion. Just what I needed. Let the games begin. The encrypted document titled The Furies grew every day. It was no longer just a log of overheard conversations and suspicions. It was a survival plan and a roadmap for war. The sterile product manager part of my brain had taken full control, compartmentalizing the boiling rage and bottomless grief into a background process. For now, the outward interface Serafina, the blissfully pregnant wife, had to be flawless. I became an actress inside the story Liam and his family were writing for me. I threw myself into the role with Oscar-worthy dedication. I cooed over linen swatches for the nursery wing at the Solari estate, a house I had zero intention of ever setting foot in. I let Natalie Victoria's nutritionist dictate my meals, obediently swallowing steamed kale and quinoa while secretly stashing protein bars in my gym bag. I complained about pregnancy brain, about fatigue, about feeling overwhelmed by it all. It made me look harmless, fragile, the perfect victim. Meanwhile, in the shadows, Project Furies escalated. The burner phone Flora vibrated 2 days after the garden meeting. A single cryptic text from Chloe. Tomorrow, 4 p.m., 181 Otis Studio, Unit 12. Tell the camera you are here for the reclaimed wood bar table. The address led to a nondescript industrial building in South San Francisco. Unit 12 had a flat steel door with a discreet camera. I stated the passphrase. A buzzer sounded, and the door unlocked. Inside was not a woodshop, but a sleek, modern command center. The exposed brick walls were covered in whiteboards filled with complex diagrams and lines of code. In one corner, server racks hummed softly. A long table held several high-end laptops. 2 women looked up as I walked in. One was Chloe. The other I recognized with a jolt. Elena Santos. A legend in certain circles. A former NSA cybersecurity prodigy who had gone private, known for taking on massive corporations and winning brutal data breach litigations. She was in her late 40s with a severe black bob and eyes that missed nothing. You made it, Chloe said, unsmiling. Serafina Elena. Elena Serafina. Elena gave me a clipped nod. Chloe brought me up to speed. Show me what you have. Skip the pleasantries. I liked her. I pulled out the burner phone and my personal laptop, accessing the encrypted partition via a secure, isolated connection Elena provided. I laid it all out. The details of the overheard conversation the iCloud forwards, showing the blue confetti cannon, the Find My location data, the mirrored calendar alert for the dinner with SR. Elena scrutinized the data, her fingers flying across her own keyboard, cross-referencing, tracing digital footprints I couldn't see. After 10 minutes of tense silence, she leaned back. It is circumstantial. Good for a news story, maybe, but not for a criminal case. And certainly not enough to stop what is coming. Her voice was flat, analytical. The iCloud forwards are a good start, but he could claim the texts from Sophia are just an affair, that the conversation with the doctor was a misunderstanding. The trust clause is disgusting, but not illegal. We need the knife, the smoking gun. Direct communication where he orders the doctor to hide the treatment or discusses the logistics of your death. I know I said my voice steady. I need to get into his primary device, his current phone, his work laptop. Elena shook her head. Too risky. He almost certainly has enterprise-grade security. Biometric locks, tamper alerts. You trip one of those, the whole castle goes into lockdown and you are in serious trouble. We need a bridge, something he uses that is less secure but still connected to his main data stream. I thought of the old iPhone sitting on the speaker dock. He has an old phone, uses it as an iPod. Swipe to unlock. I installed a system cleaner app with a network logger and notification mirroring. It is logged into his main Apple ID. Elena's eyebrows went up a millimeter. It was the closest thing to praise I was going to get. That is a start, a back door. But it is passive. We need to be active. We need to make him give us access. How Chloe asked, frowning. Social engineering. Elena said, the ghost of a smile playing on her lips. The weakest point of any security system is the human. You said he is stressed about a board meeting, constantly on edge about liquidity events and merging verticals. Perfect. Elena spun her monitor around to show us a complex flowchart. We create a low-level, believable crisis that forces him to access sensitive data from a non-standard device, the old phone. Something that rattles him just enough to get sloppy. The plan was born in that room. Over the next 2 hours, it became elegant in its cruelty. We would hack Liam not through code, but through his own arrogance and stress. The opportunity arrived 3 days later. Liam was gearing up for the Sterling Capital quarterly board review, a high-stakes event where the fund's performance was dissected. He was irritable, distracted, snapping over minor inconveniences. Perfect. Phase 1 began with Chloe using her press credentials. She accessed a semi-public investor database and pulled the email addresses of several mid-level analysts at Sterling Capital. From a burner account, she sent a highly convincing phishing email to one of them, spoofed to look like it came from the firm's IT department, requesting an immediate password reset due to a security anomaly. The analyst, likely overworked and anxious, clicked the link and entered his credentials. It didn't give us anything critical, but it created noise. A minor security alert would ripple through the Sterling Capital system. Phase 2 was mine. That night, as Liam ranted about incompetent analysts and lazy IT guys, I played my part. "Honey," I said, my voice dripping with tired concern, "you are exhausted. Come sit down. Let me pour you a drink." I handed him a whiskey. "Just the usual board drama." "Worse," he grumbled, sinking into his favorite Eames chair. "Some idiot analyst might have compromised his login. IT is running a sweep, but it is a massive headache. Now I have to verify the integrity of half my presentation models." I sat on the ottoman at his feet, a gesture of submission and support I had seen in old movies. "Can't you just, I don't know, run a check from your secure laptop?" "Secure laptop is at the office. IT has it for the sweep. I have the data on the private server, but to access it from here, I need the two-factor authentication on my phone. And it is..." He trailed off, rubbing his temples. "It is a mess." I saw my opening. "What about your old phone, the one you use for music? Is it not still linked to your iCloud? Maybe you could at least pull up the older versions of the models, compare them. Better than nothing." I made it sound like a naive, helpful suggestion. Liam frowned, then looked over at the old iPhone sitting innocently on its dock. "That thing is ancient. Probably does not even have the right apps." "Worth a shot," I said, blinking softly. "You always say I am your lucky charm. Maybe tonight I am a tech charm." He gave me a tired half-smile. "All right. Cannot hurt to look." He stood up, pulled the old phone off the dock, and brought it back to the couch. He swiped to unlock. I held my breath. He opened the Mail app. It synced slowly. He grunted, scrolling. Old copies. Useless. He opened the Notes app. The password-protected note. Trust scenarios. It was right there. He didn't open it. My heart sank. Then he opened the Messages app. The old threads loaded, and there it was. The thread with Sophia. He stared at it, his face tightening. He must have forgotten it was still on this device. He quickly swiped to delete the entire thread, but in that instant, as his thumb hovered, I saw it. From my angle, I could just read the preview of the most recent message, which on this old phone was not recent at all. It was from over a year ago. It was from Sophia. It read, "Liam, I understand the timeline, but this is killing me. Playing assistant seeing you with her? You promised that after the merger, the rest was cut off. But it was enough. A timestamp. A promise. Me." Liam deleted the thread, then emptied the trash. He looked up and saw me watching. His expression turned guarded.
Just clearing out old junk, he said too casually.
Sure, I smiled. You want more whiskey? Yeah, thanks. As I walked to the bar, my mind raced. He had opened the Messages app. The network logger from the Cleaner app would have captured that session. Maybe it had cached some data. It was a long shot, but it was a thread. Later that night, when Liam was snoring softly, I crept downstairs. The old phone was back on its dock. I grabbed it, my heart hammering. I opened the Cleaner app's portal. The network log was a sea of gibberish, but I searched for packet identifiers associated with iMessage. I found a cluster. Encrypted, of course. But the app in its clumsy logging had also captured a small plaintext file containing message metadata for the synced session. Sender, receiver, timestamp. And there, buried in the data dump, I saw a string that turned my blood to ice. It wasn't from the old Sophia thread. It was metadata for a message sent 2 weeks ago from Liam's number to a number tagged in the cache as Evans GS. The timestamp matched the day after my fatal clinic appointment. The message preview was truncated, but it read, "Appreciate your discretion. The separate file is essential. My assistant will coordinate the separate file, the encrypted one, the one detailing my death sentence." I had a direct line, a time-stamped communication between Liam and Dr. Evans established right after the conspiracy was set. It wasn't the payload, but it was a signpost pointing straight at it. I documented everything, saved the logs the metadata took, screenshots of the Cleaner app dashboard. I uploaded it all to a new encrypted cloud drive Elena had set up, accessible only to the 3 of us. The next morning, Flora vibrated. Studio. Noon. Bring everything. When I arrived, there was a third woman there. Maya Chin. Younger than Elena, with sharp, intense eyes and intricate geometric tattoo sleeves covering her forearms. She was introduced as a hardware and electronics forensics specialist, the person you called when you needed to know if a device was bugged or how to plant a bug without leaving a trace. I ran your data. Elena started without preamble, pulling up files on a large monitor. The metadata is good. It establishes a pattern of communication. But it is not enough. We need the contents of the separate file. We need the trust documents. We need current communications with Sophia and his parents. She turned to me. You said he uses a password manager. Yes, LastPass. He is obsessive about it. Different, complex passwords for everything. But he has to get into it somehow. Maya spoke up, her voice low and precise. Face ID. Biometrics on his phone. Yeah, he never types the master password, just uses his face. Then we get his face to unlock it for us, Maya said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, while he is asleep. It is tricky with the newer models because they have attention detection to prevent exactly this. But if you can get the phone at just the right angle with low light and his eyes even slightly open, it can work. It is a long shot, but it is the only shot at the master vault. A plan took shape even more dangerous and intimate than the last. My stomach churned at the thought of it, but I nodded. I can try. Is there another way? Chloe cut in. The annual Innovation Frontier Gala, the Sterling Foundation. It is 3 weeks away. It is their biggest event. Every partner, every investor, the entire tech elite will be there. Liam is giving the keynote. The pressure will be immense. He will be distracted. The facade has to be perfect. She looked at me, then at Elena. That is our window. That is where we pivot from gathering evidence to executing the exit strategy. We need everything by then. Executing what I asked, the air in the room growing thick. I get the proof. We go to the press, to the FBI. And then what? Elena cut in. You start a years-long legal battle against the Sterlings, while visibly pregnant, and a target. Even with proof, he will spin it. He will say the doctor misunderstood. He will say Sophia is a stalker. He will paint you as unstable. The therapy is elective, not a standard of care. He has the best lawyers money can buy. You will be tied up in court long after. She didn't finish the sentence. We need a solution that ends the threat permanently and leaves you clean. A cold silence filled the room. I knew what she was implying. We all did. This had moved past self-defense. It was crossing into entirely different territory. We are not assassins, I whispered. No, Maya said quietly. We are engineers. We identify system flaws and we exploit them. Liam Sterling is a man who cuts corners, who takes risks, who believes his own hype and thinks he is untouchable. We just have to find the flaw in his system and let nature take its course. Chloe leaned forward. The gala, the main stage. It is a custom build every year, right? All the AV, the lighting, the teleprompters. I nodded, seeing where she was going. Yes, it is a massive production. They bring in a specific vendor. Sterling Capital has used them for years. Maya's eyes lit up with technical fervor. Old staging, old wiring. A lot of high-voltage equipment very close to a sweating, standing speaker. A man under tremendous stress. Maybe with a slight heart murmur he doesn't even know about. She looked at Elena. A system failure could be convincing, and ultimately untraceable to a specific actor if it is designed as a cascading fault. Elena nodded slowly. A tragic accident at a highly public event with hundreds of witnesses. No one questions a grieving pregnant widow, especially one who inherits everything. The sheer, cold audacity of it took my breath away. They were talking about killing him. Not in a dark alley, but on a stage in front of everyone, making it look like an accident, a system failure, Liam's system. The part of me that was still the woman who had said I do recoiled in horror. The mother wolf, the product manager facing an existential bug, nodded slowly. We would need the schematics, access to the rig before the event, a way to introduce the fault that can't be traced back. That is my department, Maya said. Get me the vendor name, the schematics if you can. I will handle the rest. You, she looked at me, you have one job before the gala. Get into that password manager. We need to know every detail of his plan. The trust documents, the communications with the doctor, everything. That is our insurance policy. If something goes wrong, we have the truth to burn it all down. The next week was a marathon of tension and acting. I played the doting wife, helping Liam practice his speech, offering unhelpful feedback he ignored, bringing him tea. I watched his routines. He always left his phone on his nightstand, screen up. He slept deeply, especially after a few whiskeys. The night before the gala, the pressure was palpable. He rehearsed his lines in the mirror. The future is not built by the timid, it is seized by the bold. Those willing to make the hard choices for a greater vision. He caught my eye in the reflection. What do you think? It is powerful, I said, smiling from the bed. Very you. Hard choices. The phrase tasted like ash now. He came to bed late, smelling of whiskey and exhaustion. He fell asleep almost immediately, his breathing deep and even. I waited an hour, until the digital clock read 2:07 a.m. My hands were freezing. I slid out of bed and crept around to his side. His phone was there, face up. I picked it up carefully. The screen lit up with the time. I tilted it toward his face. The Face ID icon spun and spun. Failed. Attention detection. I had it right in front of his face, but his eyes were closed, gently. So gently, I used my thumb to barely brush his eyelid, lifting it a fraction. He stirred, mumbling. I froze. His breathing settled again. I tried again, tilting the phone. The icon spun and unlocked. I was in. My fingers trembled as I opened the LastPass app. It asked for biometrics again. I aimed the phone at his face. This time it worked. The vault opened. A universe of secrets spilled across the screen. I searched Evans, found an entry, Dr. D. Jansen, with a username and a 16-character password. I searched Sterling Trust. There was a PDF attached. I searched Sophia. There was an entry for a secure messaging app I had never heard of with a password. I couldn't download them here. Too risky. But I could take photos. With the phone silenced, I started snapping, scrolling through the vault, capturing every entry that looked relevant. Aurora shares, liquidity event, legal, family, B. Crawford, residence, security, SQSF. It took 12 minutes, an eternity. Every second stretched, punctuated by the sound of Liam's breathing. Finally, I had it. I locked the phone, placed it exactly as it had been, and crept back to my side of the bed. I didn't sleep. I lay there, the photons of his secrets burning in my mind. The next morning, while Liam was in the shower, I airdropped the photos from my phone to my laptop, then immediately deleted them from my device. I uploaded them to the encrypted drive. An hour later, at the safe house, the four Furies reviewed the harvest. The password to the separate file unlocked an encrypted cloud folder. And there it was. A scanned letter from Dr. Evans on Jansen letterhead, formally detailing the risk of the genetic marker that proposed therapy, the cost, and the dire prognosis without it. And below it, a notarized document signed by Liam Sterling, refusing the treatment. The stated reason: economic unfeasibility and unproven efficacy. It was dated the day after my appointment. We had the knife. The trust documents were even more damning. The clauses were Byzantine, but the core was clear. Upon the death of a spouse, all marital assets in the spouse's name reverted to the Sterling bloodline trustee Liam for management in the interest of the lineage. A male heir of direct descent triggered the immediate tax-free release of the entire intergenerational trust valued in the hundreds of millions. A female heir delayed it by decades. It wasn't just a preference, it was a financial necessity. The secure messaging app logs, once we accessed them, were a sordid chronicle. Plans with Sophia, conversations with his father Robert about resolving the Serafina situation and ensuring a smooth transition. Instructions to the family lawyer Benjamin Crawford about updating his will to name Sophia's unborn son as the beneficiary, contingent on certain foreseeable changes in marital status. It was all there. A conspiracy in black and white and digital code. Maya broke the silence, her voice grim. I have the schematics for the gala stage. It is a custom rig, but the main power distribution is routed through a refurbished older unit. Overloaded circuits, a faulty ground connection at the podium, compounded by, say, a spilled glass of water by a nervous speaker, could be highly dangerous. Almost impossible to trace as sabotage if done right. A tragic accident. Elena looked at me. It is your call, Serafina. We have enough to go nuclear. We can leak it all to the press, the SEC, the medical board. It will destroy him. But it will destroy you too. The scandal, the trials, the constant scrutiny. Your daughters will grow up under that shadow. I looked at the evidence on the screen, the cold, clinical language of my death sentence, the eager planning of my replacement. I thought about the twins shifting softly inside me. I thought about the stage, the flashing lights, the crowd. Liam at the podium, talking about hard choices and bold visions. I didn't see a husband. I saw a critical system failure, a bug that would corrupt everything it touched, a vulnerability that needed to be patched permanently. I looked each of them in the eye. Chloe, the truth seeker. Elena, the system breaker. Maya, the engineer of quiet consequences. "We stick to the original plan," I said, my voice sounding foreign, calm, and absolutely certain. "At the gala, we end this." Chloe nodded, a fierce light in her eyes. Elena gave a clipped gesture of approval. Maya simply said, "I will need access to the venue the day before for the final walkthrough. Can you get me in?" "I am the pregnant wife," I said, a cold smile touching my lips for the first time in weeks. "I am overseeing the floral arrangements for the head table. I can bring my technical consultant to ensure the rig doesn't interfere with the centerpieces." We spent the next 2 hours finalizing the details. The fault Maya would introduce a nearly invisible shunt on the ground wire of the podium's integrated monitor, designed to fail under a specific combination of moisture and load. The contingency, a small, remote-controlled relay I could trigger from a modified key fob inside my clutch. A final failsafe to close the circuit at the exact right moment. My alibi would be in the front row, visibly pregnant, the picture of wifely admiration. Leaving the safe house, the weight of what we were about to do settled over me. Not as a burden, but as a mantle. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about removal, about excising a piece of malicious code from our world. I drove home, the California sun glaring off the windshield. Liam was at a final rehearsal. The house was quiet. I went to the pristine, unused nursery in the home we actually lived in and sat in the rocking chair. I placed my hands on my stomach. "Soon," I whispered. "Soon it will be safe. Mom is going to fix everything." I wasn't praying. I was committing to a launch sequence. The countdown had started. The target was locked. All systems were go. 7 a.m., the day of the gala. My reflection in the bathroom mirror was a stranger. Hair perfectly styled in soft waves, flawless makeup, that dewy natural glow that took 45 minutes to achieve. The emerald green silk dress cut to drape elegantly over the small but defined curve of my belly was Victoria's thoughtful gift. It was armor. I smoothed the fabric. My hands were steady. Inside me, a storm of silent calculations ran its final diagnostic. System check. Primary objective: neutralize threat permanently. Method: induced system failure on stage. Contingency: digital dead man's switch. Evidence packet secured. My role: alibi. Performance: final authorization of trigger. I touched the delicate diamond necklace at my throat. Another sterling heirloom. The modified key fob was in my vintage Judith Lieber clutch, next to my lipstick and a tissue. It looked like a decorative charm. It was the kill switch. From the shower, I heard Liam singing off-key, some classic rock anthem. He was in a surprisingly good mood. Why wouldn't he be? Tonight, he would unveil his grand vision to the Silicon Valley elite. And shortly after the last obstacle to his perfect legacy me would be removed. He was practically euphoric. I practiced my smile in the mirror. The warm, proud, slightly starstruck wife smile. I had gotten terrifyingly good at it. 4 days prior, the infiltration. The schematic is a nightmare. Maya's voice was crisp over the encrypted video call. Her face, framed by the cold light of a CAD program, was pure focus. Chloe, Elena, and I were boxed on the screen, each from a secure location. It is not just old. It is a Frankenstein. They have integrated new LED displays and a wireless teleprompter into a power grid that looks like it was wired during the first dot-com boom. See this. A red circle highlighted a junction box on the blueprint. This is the main feed to the podium. The ground line is original. It is under spec for the current load, even on a good day. So it could just fail on its own. Chloe asked her journalist brain, looking for plausible deniability. It could, but could is not a plan. We need it to fail, and we need to control when. Maya zoomed in. The podium itself has a metal frame. The plan is to introduce a minor fault here at the grounding point inside the pedestal. A high-resistance splice. It will pass initial checks, but under sustained load, and crucially with the introduction of a conductive liquid, say a sweaty hand or a spilled glass of water, it creates a potential difference. The current will look for the path of least resistance, which, on a sweating man holding a grounded metal frame, will be through him. A cold, technical description of a murder. I felt nothing but professional interest. The contingency, I asked. The shunt I am installing is passive. It is a flaw. To ensure it triggers at the precise moment, you have this. She held up a tiny, complex circuit board with a microscopic antenna. This gets wired in parallel. It is a remote-activated relay. It is your button. You close the circuit with the fob. It bypasses all safety measures and creates a direct short. The primary fault provides the plausible cause. This is the guarantee. It is untraceable after the fact because it will vaporize in the discharge. And the conscience switch, Elena asked, voicing what we had all agreed was non-negotiable. A way to abort. To leave it as just a flaw and not a weapon. Maya nodded. The relay has a physical manual disconnect, a pin. You pull the pin, the remote circuit is broken. Only the passive fault remains. You will have access to it. It is cleverly disguised. If you decide to pull it, the worst that might happen is a blown fuse and some embarrassed AV techs. No fireworks. I need to see it. I need to know where the pin is. That is why you are bringing me as your consultant tomorrow, Maya replied. Final walkthrough. I will point it out. You will have a 5-second window from the moment he steps on stage to decide whether to pull the pin or not. 3 days prior. The venue. The Innovation Frontier Gala was held in a decommissioned military hangar in Alameda that the Sterlings had converted into an event space. It was all raw, concrete steel beams and money. Today, it was a chaos of rolling ladders, coiled cables, and shouting crews. I wore a loose linen dress and oversized sunglasses, playing the role of the slightly fussy, aesthetics-obsessed wife. Maya, beside me, was dressed in tactical black, with a lanyard that read, AV Systems, Veraritos. She carried a sophisticated tablet and a toolkit. Mrs. Sterling, what an honor. Dave, the exhausted-looking stage manager, hurried over, wiping his hands on his jeans. Everything is on schedule. The floral mock-ups for the head table are over there. Thank you, Dave. This is Maya from Veraritos Consulting. We had some feedback from the Tokyo charity event last year about harmonic interference between the subwoofers and the teleprompter feeds. I wanted her to run a quick compatibility check with your new setup. It will not take a moment. Dave looked pained. We are on a very tight timeline. Victoria Sterling is very keen to avoid a repeat of the text scrolling issues, I said, smoothly invoking the dragon's name. He paled. Of course. Right this way. Maya gave me a slight nod and followed him into the tech pit below the main stage. I wandered, pretending to admire the lighting rig. My heart was a drum in my chest. 15 minutes later, Maya rejoined me, her face unreadable. All set? She murmured as we walked back to the car. The shunt is in place. The relay is installed. The pin. She discreetly opened her tablet, showing a close-up photo of the inner framework of the podium. A small brass-colored bolt, seemingly one of dozens holding the assembly together, was circled. Looks like a screw. It isn't. It is threaded plastic. A quarter turn counterclockwise with your thumbnail, and it pops out, breaking the remote circuit. It is on the inner left wall, 3 inches from the floor. You have to kneel down and reach in. I can access it during the event, during the pre-reception cocktail hour. The stage will be clear. A 30-second window. If you aren't seen, after that, it is a fortress. I burned the image into my memory. A tiny fake bolt holding the weight of a conscience. 2 days prior. The pressure cooker. We need to discuss the postnatal trust allocation, Serafina. Victoria's voice was iced vodka over the phone. Benjamin has drafted some paperwork, just a formality to ensure the children's interests are perfectly aligned with the family's guardianship. Sign over control of any assets that might come to me or the twins. My fingers tightened around the phone. Of course, Victoria. Though my lawyer always says I shouldn't sign anything without her present. You know how they are. A glacial pause. The Sterling family are your lawyers, darling. Our interests are your interests. I will bring the documents to the gala. Liam can witness. We will handle it quietly in one of the green rooms before the speeches. I won't take no for an answer. The line went dead. Later, Liam approached me, his face a mask of apologetic frustration. Babe, I know Mom is being a lot, but just humor her. Sign the damn papers. We can undo it all later. After the babies are born and everything settles down. It is just to get her off our backs for tonight. I need to be focused, not dealing with family drama. It was so transparent. If I signed and then had a tragic, sudden postpartum complication, those papers would be ironclad. My daughters would be prisoners of the Sterling Trust, and all my Aurora shares would fall under Liam's guardianship. You are right, I sighed, leaning into him. It is just stress. I will sign for a peaceful night. He kissed the top of my head. That is my girl. Always pragmatic. The night before. The Last Supper. Robert and Victoria hosted a family briefing dinner in Atherton. The air was thick with arrogant expectation. Robert pontificated on market dynamics. Victoria criticized the gala menu. Liam glowed, practicing his talking points. Then the doorbell rang. Maria, the housekeeper, announced, Mr. Sterling. A Miss Reed is here. She says she has the final data models you requested for the mid-quarter review. Sophia had been invited, not summoned. She walked in wearing a smart professional wrap dress that did little to hide her rounding belly. The room froze. Victoria's smile was razor thin. Robert gave a slow nod of approval. Liam looked shocked for a moment, then recovered. Sophia, thank you for making the drive. Everyone remembers Sophia, my lead data analyst, the genius behind our new predictive liquidity models. He was a terrible actor under pressure. Of course, Victoria said, her eyes tracking over Sophia's stomach like a real estate appraisal. How are you feeling, my dear? You look robust. Very well, thank you, Mrs. Sterling, Sophia said softly. She couldn't meet my eyes. Good. She had a shred of shame left. Join us for dessert, Robert boomed. A command, not an offer. Maria set a place for Ms. Reed next to Liam. The meal was a study in exquisite torture. Sophia sat where I used to sit. Victoria peppered her with pointed questions about her background, modest her education, state school. Her due date, 2 weeks after mine, was a display. A passing of the torch. I was the current wife, about to be retired. She was the future, carrying the precious heir. I played my part perfectly. I was polite, slightly distant, the distracted mother-to-be. I asked Sophia where she planned to deliver. I recommended my OB. The hypocrisy was so dense, it had a physical taste. As coffee was served, Victoria made her move. Liam tells us you are on board with the trust alignment, Serafina. Such a relief. Unity is so important for the children. She slid a glance toward Sophia. For all the children. Sophia flushed. Liam shifted uncomfortably. Mom, not tonight. Why not tonight? Victoria's eyes gleamed. We are all family here, one way or another. We are all invested in the same bright future. She raised her glass. To the future. To the legacy. We all drank. My champagne flute held sparkling cider. It tasted like ashes. On the drive back, Liam was quiet. "That was intense," he finally said. "Mom gets carried away. She was just making Sophia feel welcome." I stared out the window. "It is nice. You will have a good support system for the baby." He reached for my hand. "Sir, it is not what you think. I am tired, Liam. I do not want to think about anything tonight." I let my hand lie dead in his. The finality of it felt right. 12:17 a.m., the day of the gala. I stood in the dark nursery, the one in the house we actually lived in, the one that would never be used. I placed a hand on my stomach. "This is for you," I whispered. My voice was the only sound in the universe. "So that no one will ever own you. So that no one will ever decide you are too expensive or the wrong gender or an inconvenient truth. Mom is going to break this whole damn system." 2 p.m. The green room chaos. The green room was a whirlwind of publicists, makeup artists, and anxious Sterling Capital executives. Liam was being mic'd up while reviewing his note cards. Victoria, in a terrifying silver sequined gown, held court. Robert was on his third scotch. Victoria spotted me and swooped in a sheaf of documents in her hand. "There you are. Benjamin is here. Let us get this over with. Quick, quick." I followed her into a smaller, soundproofed antechamber. The family lawyer, Benjamin Crawford, a man with dead fish eyes, stood by a small table. The documents were spread out, just the signature pages. Serafina Victoria trilled. "Liam has already signed. It is a standard marital asset harmonization and testamentary guardianship addendum. Basically streamlines everything for the children's benefit." I scanned the first page. Certain phrases leapt out. "In the event of incapacitation or passing, sole discretion of the designated trustee, Liam Sterling. All issued in outstanding shares of Aurora Technologies, Inc. Permanent guardianship of offspring to the Sterling Family Trust." I looked up at Liam, who had followed us in. "This transfers my Aurora shares to you and gives the trust permanent control over the children." "Temporary guardianship, babe?" he said, his voice soothing. "It is a formality. It protects our assets from getting tied up in probate. It is for them." He pointed to my belly. Benjamin the dead fish nodded. "Standard estate planning for high net worth families with concentrated assets. Ensures continuity." I picked up the expensive pen. I could feel Victoria's triumphant stare, Liam's tense expectation. I thought of the remote relay, the tiny brass pin. I smiled, a soft, surrendered smile. "If it is for the children," I signed. Serafina Vance. A flawless forgery of my usual signature, practiced for hours. One letter was subtly off. In a contested will, a handwriting expert would flag it. It was my own little legal shunt. Victoria beamed, snatching the papers up. "Wonderful. Now let us get you to your seat. The future awaits." She marched out, Crawford trailing her. Liam lingered for a second, taking my face in his hands. "Thank you. You won't regret this." He kissed me. I tasted his lie. "Break a leg out there," I whispered. 5:45 p.m. The stage. The pre-reception was in full swing in the main hangar, a cacophony of laughter and deal-making. The stage was dark, deserted. Clutch in hand, I walked toward it with purpose, like I had dropped an earring earlier. A bored security guard nodded at me. "Everything okay, Mrs. Sterling?" "Just left my reading glasses by the podium," I said with an embarrassed laugh. "Pregnancy brain." He chuckled and let me pass. I knelt at the base of the sleek, modern podium, my heart hammering against my ribs. I reached through the cable access port, my fingers feeling along the cold inner metal wall. 1, 2, 3 inches. There. A small brass bolt head. I wedged my thumbnail under the edge. A quarter turn counterclockwise. It gave. Then it came free in my fingers. a small, lightweight plastic cylinder.
I pulled it out and slipped it into my pocket.
The remote circuit was disabled. Only the passive fault remained. The choice was made. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked back into the glittering crowd. I found my seat in the front row next to an empty chair reserved for Victoria. I placed the clutch on my lap, my fingers resting on Pop. The modified key fob was inside. Useless now. Unless I changed my mind. 6 p.m. Showtime. The lights dimmed. A hush fell. Dramatic music swelled. Liam strode onto the stage, caught in a single spotlight. He looked powerful, confident, born to be there. He gripped the sides of the podium, leaning into the microphone. Thank you. What an incredible sight. His amplified voice filled the room. Tonight we stand on the edge of a new frontier. But innovation is not born of comfort. It is forged in the crucible of hard choices. I watched him. This man who held my life in such casual disregard, who saw our daughters as a disappointment and his mistress as a ledger entry. He was sweating under the hot lights. A waiter passed by me. I subtly stuck my foot out. The young man stumbled. The tray of champagne flutes he was collecting tilted. A cascade of liquid splashed across the edge of the stage, inches from the base of the podium. The waiter scrambled, apologizing. The crowd offered nervous chuckles. Liam didn't notice. True vision requires the courage to cut away what holds us back, to remove friction, even when it hurts. The spilled champagne crept forward, a glittering rivulet along a stage seam heading straight for the podium's power feed. Moisture introduced? Check. My hand tightened on the clutch. The passive fault was in play. The conditions were aligning. It could happen on its own now. A tragic accident. But could wasn't enough. Not for what he had done. Not for what he had planned. He didn't deserve the randomness of chance. He deserved a verdict. An execution. My thumb found the single button on the key fob through the silk of the clutch. Liam raised a hand, gripping the metal frame of the podium tighter for emphasis. The future belongs to the bold, to those who are not afraid to take it, to reshape it, to do whatever it takes to. I pressed the button. A sound like a massive staple gun echoed through the hangar. A loud, sharp crack. A blinding white-blue flash erupted from the base of the podium. Liam's body went rigid. A grotesque statue silhouetted against the light. A guttural, choked sound escaped through the speakers. Then he collapsed, disappearing behind the podium. For 1 second, there was absolute, stunned silence. Then a woman screamed. Chaos erupted. I jumped to my feet, my hands flying to my mouth. My face a perfect mask of horrified disbelief. Liam! I screamed the sound, tearing at my throat. And in that moment, it wasn't entirely an act. It was the scream for the man he had been, for the life I thought we had. All of it finally dying in that spectacular public flash. I took a step toward the stage, then staggered dramatically, letting Chloe, seated nearby, exactly as planned, catch me. Somebody help him! My husband I sobbed, letting the clutch drop from my hands. The key fob skittering onto the floor among the running feet, soon to be lost and forgotten. As the crowd panicked and people rushed the stage, I let my head fall back, staring up at the harsh industrial lights through a veil of very real, very complicated tears. It was done. System failure, complete. User, Serafina Vance. Status, alive. Silence for a heartbeat. 2. After the deafening crack, there was an absolute vacuum-sealed silence. The kind of silence that exists between lightning and thunder. Then, the world shattered. Screams tore through the hangar, the hysterical shriek of a woman. Oh my God! The bellow of a man. Cut the power! The thud of running bodies, chairs scraping. The stage lights flickered and died, replaced by the harsh white glare of emergency floods. I let my legs give out. Chloe's arms, right on cue, caught me as I collapsed.
Liam.
My wail was raw, ragged, ripped from a place that wasn't entirely artifice. It was the death cry of the woman I used to be. My husband. "Somebody help him! Get a doctor, now!" Robert Sterling's roar cut through the din of the panic. He vaulted onto the stage with an agility that belied his age and the scotch he'd consumed. Victoria, a silver-sequined ghost, was right on his heels. I let myself be half-dragged, half-carried by Chloe toward the stage. "I need to see him." "Let me through," I thrashed weakly. The perfect picture of pregnant desperation. The scene by the podium was surreal. Lit by the cold emergency lights and the frantic beams of 100 cell phone flashlights, Liam lay on his back. His limbs were at odd angles, and there was a faint smell of ozone and something metallic in the air. His eyes were open, staring blankly at the industrial rafters. A young event medic was on her knees beside him, feeling for a pulse at his neck, then his wrist. Her face was grim. She started chest compressions, her movements frantic. "What happened?" Robert screamed at a pale, paralyzed stagehand. "What the hell did you people do?" "I don't know, sir." There was a flash at the base. The podium. It was a shock. An electrical shock? A voice from the crowd yelled, "Clear the area. Everyone back." The Sterling family's head of security, a hulking man named Harris, suddenly appeared, shoving people back. His eyes swept the scene, landing on me, a sobbing wreck in Chloe's arms. "Mrs. Sterling, you need to step back, for your safety and the baby's." Victoria stood rigid, staring down at her son. Her face was a marble mask, but a tiny muscle twitched violently in her jaw. "Is he—" The medic sat back on her heels, shaking her head. "I have nothing. No pulse, not breathing. I am so sorry." She resumed compressions, but it was a mechanical, hopeless motion. "No!" The sound that came out of Victoria was inhuman. She lunged forward, but Robert caught her, his face ashen. He held her as she crumpled. The terrifying matriarch reduced to a broken, keening thing. Paramedics and then police swarmed the venue, radios crackling. I was escorted gently, but firmly, to a folding chair near the wings. A thermal blanket was draped over my shoulders. Chloe stayed close, playing the supportive friend. "Breathe, just breathe." A detective approached me. A woman in her late 40s with a tired, sharp face and a badge that read, "Detective Alvarez, SV, PD." Her voice was low. "Mrs. Sterling, I am so incredibly sorry. I know this is impossible right now, but I need to ask you a few questions. Can you tell me what you saw?" I looked up at her, my eyes swimming with manufactured tears. He was giving his speech. He was talking about the future. And then there was this terrible sound, like a gunshot, and a bright light. And he fell. I buried my face in my hands, my shoulders shaking. I tried to get to him. The babies. I couldn't. "Did you see him touch anything unusual? Did the podium look like something was wrong with it?" I shook my head, wiping my eyes. No. It was just his speech. He was holding the sides like he always does. He was sweating. The lights are so hot. I let a fresh wave of sobs overtake me. Chloe rubbed my back. "Did he have any health conditions? Any heart issues?" "No. He was perfect. He just had a physical last month. He was perfect." The truth weaponized. Alvarez nodded, taking notes. "Okay, thank you. We will need a formal statement later, but for now, just stay with your friend. A paramedic is going to check you and the babies out, all right? Standard procedure." I nodded mutely. As Alvarez stepped away to speak with the tech crew, I saw her partner, a younger detective, crouched by the podium with a forensics tech. They were pointing at the dark, wet stain on the stage floor, from the spilled champagne. Liquids and old wiring, the tech was saying, his voice carrying in the hushed space. Bad combination. Look at this feed. The insulation is cracked and the ground here it is nowhere near code. Could a shock from this kill a man? The young detective asked. With the right conditions. Wet surface. Sweaty hands. Completing the circuit through the metal frame. Absolutely. It is an industrial accident waiting to happen. Across the room there was Sophia. She was pressed against a wall, her face chalk white, both hands clasped protectively over her belly. Her eyes were huge, fixed on the sheet they were now pulling over Liam's body. Victoria, noticing her stare, followed it. The look that passed between the two women was pure, undiluted venom. In that instant, whatever alliance they had shattered. Sophia was no longer the vessel for the air. She was the other woman, a living reminder of scandal. And now, a potential claimant. Robert stormed over to Detective Alvarez, his grief hardening into rage. This is negligence. Criminal negligence. I want the head of that AV company on a platter. I want everyone responsible in jail. We are investigating, Mr. Sterling Alvarez, said her voice, calm but firm. Accidents like this, with old equipment under load, they are tragedies. We will have to impound all the gear, interview the crew. An accident, Robert spat. My son is dead. Initial forensic assessment suggests a catastrophic equipment failure, Alvarez replied, sweeping her gaze over the scene. We will know more after the full investigation and the coroner's report. A paramedic knelt in front of me, taking my blood pressure, asking about contractions. I answered in monosyllables. My performance now was that of a numb, hollow shell. Inside, a cold clock was still ticking. The pin. Did they find the pin? The relay. Maya, disguised in her Vereditos jacket, was being questioned near the tech booth. I saw her nodding, pointing at schematics on her tablet. Her expression was one of professional concern. We recommended a full circuit overhaul last year. The load calculations were borderline. They opted for a quick patch. Tragic. The narrative was cementing. A cost-cutting measure, an aging system, a fatal coincidence. The hours bled into one another. Eventually, the hangar was cleared. The body was removed. The Sterling family was ushered into a fleet of black SUVs. I rode with Victoria and Robert. The silence in the car was a physical weight. Victoria stared out the window, her face rigid as a mask. Robert's phone buzzed endlessly with calls from lawyers, PR firms, board members. He finally barked into it. Benjamin, yes. Start drafting the release. A tragic accident. A beloved visionary son taken too soon. Emphasize the family's grief and their commitment to continuing his work. No mention of the other situation. That dies with him. Handle it. He listened. He closed his eyes. The will, yes. The most recent one. Everything to Serafina and the unborn children. It is clean. It is public. We will deal with the complications privately later. My heart, which had been a block of ice, gave a single, hard thump. The will. The one that left everything to me. The one that predated his plans with Sophia. We arrived at the Atherton estate. The house felt like a mausoleum. In the great room, the confrontation I knew was coming finally erupted. Victoria turned on me, her grief curdling into something uglier. This is your fault. I blinked, feigning dazed confusion. Mine. My fault. You were there. You were supposed to be his lucky charm, and instead you let him walk onto that death trap. Her voice was a shard of glass. Victoria, enough, Robert growled, but there was no fight left in him. No, not enough. She pointed a trembling finger at me. Now she gets everything. Everything. My son's life's work. his fortune, while that secret of his grows in the belly of an analyst. It is obscene. The will is clear, Victoria Roberts said, sinking into a chair, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. Serafina is his legal wife, the mother of his heirs, the public face of this tragedy. We need her. The sympathy, the continuity. It is all tied to her now. Victoria's eyes burned into me. I held her gaze, and for the first time, I didn't look away. I let a fraction of the steel beneath my mourning show. Just a glint. My daughters, I said, my voice low but clear, are Liam's only legitimate heirs. I am their mother. My only concern now is their safety and their future. The future their father wanted for them. I rested a hand on my stomach. I suggest that be everyone's only concern. It was a declaration of war, wrapped in the sanctity of motherhood. Victoria heard it. She took a step back as if physically struck. Robert looked between us, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, but too exhausted to comprehend its full meaning. The funeral, he muttered. The press. The board meeting. I will handle the public statements, I said quietly. With the PR team, of course. As Liam's widow. It is what he would have expected. I stood up, letting the thermal blanket fall from my shoulders. I need to lie down. The doctor said the stress. I let my voice tremble, playing my ultimate card. The fragile, pregnant widow. I left them in the cold, gilded room. Upstairs in a guest suite, I locked the door. I pulled the burner phone floor from where it was tucked into my maternity band. One text to the group chat named Gardeners. Tree is down. Landscaping as predicted. Storm contained. 3 replies came in rapid succession. Chloe narrative cementing. Tragic accident headlining all major outlets. My deep dive into tech event safety standards primed for later. Elena digital locks engaged. All gardening tools wiped remotely. No footprints. Maya. Preliminary forensic sweep. Faulty ground plus liquid intrusion. No anomalies detected. Special fertilizer dissolved. I sank onto the bed. The adrenaline crash left me shaking. It was done. Liam was gone. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the war was far from over. Victoria's hatred was now a clear and present danger. Sophia and her unborn son were a legal and PR time bomb, and I was the grieving widow at center stage of a play that was just entering its second act. A day later, Detective Alvarez came to the Atherton house for a follow-up. Her demeanor was respectful, but she retained that watchful sharpness. Mrs. Sterling, we have completed our initial technical investigation. The official cause appears to be accidental electrocution due to a ground fault in the podium's electrical system, exacerbated by moisture on the stage. The wiring was substandard and improperly maintained. The AV company's stagecraft is looking at massive fines and a massive lawsuit. I am sure I nodded, twisting a tissue in my hands. So it was nobody's fault. And everybody's fault. In a way. A terrible accident. It is unlikely the DA will press criminal charges without proof of intentional negligence. It is a civil matter now. She paused. There is one thing. A member of the cleanup crew found this near the stage. She held up a small, clear evidence bag. Inside was the charm from my Judith Lieber clutch, the modified key fob, scratched and dirty now. Is this yours? It is distinctive. My blood ran cold. I forced a frown of puzzlement, then a flash of recognition. Oh, that. That is just a silly keychain charm, a gift. It must have fallen off my clutch in the panic. Is it important? She studied it, then studied me. No, probably not. We had it checked. It is just a battery and a simple transmitter, like a garage door opener, probably unrelated. She set the bag on the coffee table. You can keep it. Just trash. Thank you, actually, I whispered. As she stood to leave, she turned back. Mrs. Sterling, for what it is worth, the coroner did find something. A pre-existing heart condition. Very slight. A murmur he likely didn't know about. Under extreme stress, even a small shock could have been the trigger. It adds to the perfect storm nature of this. I am sorry. When she was gone, I picked up the evidence bag. The conscience pin was in my jewelry box. The detonator fob was here, dismissed as trash. Both had been weighed. Both had been found wanting. Or perfect. I looked out the window at the flawless, sun-drenched lawn. The system had worked. The flaw had been identified, exploited, and the output was deemed accidental. I was the widow, the victim, the sole heir. The next move was mine. 1 month later, the conference room at Crawford, Shaw & Sterling smelled of old money lemon polish and restrained rage. I sat on one side of the polished mahogany table. My posture was relaxed, one hand resting on the arm of the chair, the other on the handle of a sleek black double stroller. Inside, wrapped in cashmere blankets, slept Isabella and Genevieve, my daughters, my anchors, my ultimate victory. Across the table, the forces of the Sterling dynasty were arrayed, but the formation was broken. Robert, aged a decade in a year, sat with his lawyer, Benjamin Crawford. Victoria, a statue carved from bitter chalk, refused to look at me, her eyes fixed on a hideous landscape painting. And at the far end, a nervous-looking woman with her own lawyer, Sophia Reed, with her infant son, Liam. Robert Sterling squirming in a carrier on her chest. My lawyer, Nina Rodriguez, was a revelation, a shark in a Valentino suit. She had been Elena's recommendation. She had taken one look at the harmonization papers I had signed under duress and laughed. A first-year associate could tear this apart. The undue influence is palpable. The forged signature is just the cherry on top. She had also seen the encrypted files from the Furies. Not all of them, but enough. The letter from Dr. Evans, the signed refusal of treatment, the trust documents, the proof of the affair, and the male heir clause. This isn't just leverage Serafina Nina had, said her eyes hard. This is a tactical nuke. The question is whether we just destroy them or use it to build something. Today was the answer. Benjamin Crawford cleared his throat. We are here to finalize the disposition of the late Liam Sterling's estate and resolve all ancillary matters. The will is clear. The bulk of personal and liquid assets passed to Serafina Vance Sterling. The Sterling Trust, however, governs the majority of the venture holdings and real estate portfolio. The trust's provisions regarding lineal descent are complex. They are simple, I said, my calm voice cutting through the legalese. My daughters are Liam's legitimate children. They are the primary beneficiaries. The existence of an extramarital child, I didn't look at Sophia, who flinched, does not negate their inheritance under California law, nor under the terms of the trust, which specifies descent. Not male descent. The Jenner clause only triggers the early release of a separate discretionary fund, a fund which, I might add, seems to have motivated criminal negligence. The room went dead still. Victoria's head snapped toward me. How dare you? I dare, I said, holding her gaze, because I have the medical records from Jansen. I have the letter from Dr. Alden Evans, detailing a life-saving treatment for me and the twins that Liam refused. I have the notarized declination document citing economic unfeasibility, while he was worth over $400 million. I let that hang in the air. A DA might view that as depraved indifference. A family court judge would certainly view it as relevant to the character of a beneficiary's father and to the fitness of anyone who might have encouraged such a decision. Robert's face was gray. That is a monstrous accusation. It is a monstrous fact, Nina intervened smoothly. We have no desire to air this publicly. My client wishes to protect her daughter's legacy and her peace, but she will not allow herself to be bullied out of what is rightfully hers and theirs. What do you want? Robert asked, the fight gone from his voice. First, the harmonization papers are null and void. Tear them up. Second, my daughters and I receive our full 50% of community property uncontested. The Palo Alto house, the Tahoe property, the liquid assets, clean and fast. And the trust holdings? Benjamin Crawford asked, his voice tight. My daughters remain beneficiaries. I will act as trustee for their shares until they reach the age of majority. In exchange, I will not contest the disbursement of the male heir fund to Liam Robert Sterling. I finally looked at Sophia. A lump sum. Enough to be secure, not enough to be a threat. In return, you sign an ironclad NDA regarding your relationship with Liam, and you waive any future claims against the estate or the trust. You move on. Sophia looked at her lawyer, then at me. Her eyes were wide with a mix of fear and desperate hope. This was more than she had ever dreamed of getting. Yes, she whispered. Agreed. Victoria made a sound of pure disgust. As for you two, I said, turning my gaze back to Robert and Victoria, the interference, the comments, the back-channel maneuvering is over. You are grandparents. You can see the girls on supervised, prearranged visits, but you have no say and no control. The narrative is mine now. The tragic, inspiring widow building a future from loss. You whisper one word against me or try to use the press, I release the medical file. The Sterling legacy becomes synonymous with monstrosity, not innovation. Do you understand? The silence was absolute. I had them. They were bullies, and I had just pulled out a bigger, sharper weapon. You are cold, Victoria hissed. I smiled. It was my first real smile in that room. I learned from the best. 6 months later, the launch. The headquarters of the Phoenix Covenant Fund was a renovated warehouse in San Francisco's Mission District. It was all light, open space, living green walls, and the palpable hum of focused energy. On the wall behind the reception desk, a single line of elegant text. We fund the unthinkable. We build the unforgettable. At the podium, I adjusted the microphone. I was leaner, stronger, my eyes clearer. I wore a simple, powerful black suit. In the front row, Chloe, Elena, and Maya sat together, their faces reflecting a fierce pride. The room was packed with journalists, investors, and dozens of female founders. A year ago, I began, my voice clear and projecting. Without needing force, I stood in another room, playing a supporting role in someone else's story. Today, I am here to tell you that the most transformative technology is not always code. Sometimes it is capital. And for too long, capital has flowed through narrow channels, funding predictable ideas and perpetuating silent crises. I clicked the remote. A slide appeared, a stark statistic. Less than 2% of venture capital funding goes to female-led health tech companies. We ignore the health and safety of half the population, and we call it a market decision. We view female founders with solutions to female problems as niche. I am here to tell you that is not just bad ethics, it is catastrophic business. The women's health market is not a niche. It is the market. Another click. The Phoenix Covenant logo, a stylized bird rising from a circuit board, filled the screen. This fund is a pact, a promise. We are deploying $150 million in capital, secured from the restructuring of my late husband's estate, exclusively to early-stage, female-led companies solving critical problems in women's health, safety, and financial autonomy. Our first investment, I nodded toward a woman in the front row. Dr. Una Sharma, a brilliant geneticist, stepped onto the stage. My company, Hercept Therapeutics, is developing a scalable, affordable platform for targeted gene regulation therapy, she said, her voice trembling slightly with passion. Our first application will be treating prenatal conditions previously considered cost prohibitive to cure. We believe no mother's life should have a price tag. The applause was thunderous. I caught Chloe's eye. Her series, The Gilded Trap, had won a Pulitzer. The resulting conversation had sparked hearings in Sacramento. The Sterling family, eager to avoid further scrutiny, had quietly backed some of the proposed regulatory reforms. Their name was now attached to change, a narrative I carefully controlled. After the speeches, as people mingled over sparkling water and kale chips, the Furies regrouped in my office. "You were magnificent," Chloe said, clinking her glass against mine. "The Wall Street Journal piece is already live, from tragedy to transformation." "The security audit on the fund's infrastructure is clean," Elena reported. "All data compartmentalized, triple key access everywhere. Even I would have a hard time getting in." Maya grinned. I reviewed the first 3 hardware pitches. One is a non-invasive at-home monitor for postpartum hemorrhage. Brilliantly simple. The kind of thing that gets overlooked because the people who suffer from it don't have a seat at the VC table. I looked at them, my sisters in arms. We did it. We actually did it. "No," Chloe corrected gently, putting an arm around my shoulders. "You did it. We just gave you the tools." Later that week, Palo Alto. The late afternoon sun was streaming into the bright, airy kitchen of our home. My home. The one we kept. Isabella was cooing in a bouncer, batting at a plush hanging satellite. Genevieve was asleep in a carrier on my chest. The doorbell rang. It was a courier with a thick, firm legal envelope. My heart rate barely ticked up. Inside were the quarterly trust distributions. The numbers were obscene. Blood money now flowing into the Phoenix Covenant, into college funds, into a life of absolute, unassailable security. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Vermont. "Saw the launch. Incredible work. The girls are beautiful." Alex? Alex. The child psychology professor I had met at the park. The one with kind eyes and an easy laugh, who had asked about the twins, not the headlines. Who had given me his number and said, "If you ever want to talk about something other than sleep schedules or venture capital." And who hadn't taken offense when I just smiled and walked away. Until months later, when I texted him just to talk. I typed back, "Thank you. Still trying to figure it all out." His reply was immediate. "Aren't we all? Coffee is still on the table. No expiration date." I set the phone down. A small, unfamiliar warmth settled in my chest. Not a plan. A possibility. That night, I settled onto the couch with a sleeping twin on each side. The silence was peaceful, not empty. On the coffee table was the day's mail. Among the bills and catalogs was a stiff, cream-colored envelope. The return address was the Sterling Estate in Atherton. I opened it. Not a letter from lawyers, but a note in Victoria's precise, venomous handwriting. "You took everything. You wear your victory like a cheap suit, but blood speaks. They are Sterling's. You are just the vessel. That truth will find them, and it will find you." I read it twice. Then, calmly, I walked over to the sleek gas fireplace. I flicked it on. I held the edge of the paper to the flame. It blackened, curled, and vanished into ash. She was wrong. They weren't Sterling's. They were Vance's. Isabella and Genevieve Vance. Their truth would be one of creation, not legacy. Of choice, not control. I walked over to the massive window, looking out over the garden Chloe, Elena, and Maya had helped me plant. It was wild, full of native grasses and resilient flowers, not the manicured roses Victoria favored. It thrived on its own terms. My phone buzzed again. A notification from the encrypted server I shared with the Furies. Elena. Motion sensor alert at the San Jose apartment. Sophia Reed is packing up. Looks like a permanent move. East Coast. Maya Good. The gift basket with baby supplies and relocation agent info was delivered anonymously yesterday. She will be fine. Chloe. And the world is a slightly less complicated place. Dinner next week. My treat. The girls can terrorize the waitstaff. I smiled, typing a reply to the group. Dinner. Yes. I looked down at my daughters, their perfect faces softened by sleep. The war was over. The peace was mine to define. It wasn't the life I had planned. It was harder, sharper, and infinitely more real. It was built on a foundation of terrible secrets and necessary fires. But from those ashes, we were rising, not just surviving, thriving. I was no longer Serafina the victim, nor Serafina the avenger. I was Serafina Vance, founder, Phoenix.